Do I just need to, I'm not going to try to guess what those letters mean. I don't know. And just write the book. So for you, yes, write the book. Um, for most, well, I don't know about most people. You don't necessarily have to write the book. However, here's what I'll say in general. What I'll say is that I think where the marketing world is going, and so many people are distracted and they don't have a lot of attention spans and stuff like that. I think what's happening is the pendulum is going to swing back to the other way. And I think a lot of the traditional forms of content are going to be seen as way more valuable. Not too long ago, a book didn't seem to be as valuable as it was 30 years ago when there was no internet. And that's really the only way you can get your content out, is write a book and have it mass delivered at least. And so with the internet came the invention of online courses and downloads and groups and all these other things. And so it kind of pushed the book aside. But what I think is happening is people realize that none of those platforms or none of those consumables are as valuable as a lot of people think, and especially if you don't implement them. So most online courses never even get consumed, let alone implemented. And so I think what's happening, because people are distrusting of a lot of the ways that businesses run now, going back to the older ways, the more fundamental ways, is actually going to be more valuable, I believe. And I think everybody should write. Maybe my biggest regret in 13 years is I didn't publish the book that I wrote. I actually wrote a book. One of the very first things I did was write a book, and I got it transcribed. I did a seminar or a series of speaking gigs, and I had it transcribed into a book for kids, like high school age kids, middle school kids, about choices. And I never published the book. The reason I didn't publish the book is because I went into the Mary Kay market, and I just wasn't going to write a book for Mary Kay. It didn't seem appropriate to do. And I had to learn ways to market online and do everything to succeed without a book. But then I developed the systems and the muscles for building a successful business without a book. And that caused my creativity to kind of get cemented in a certain way. And it caused me to just want to do things that I can only get out fast. And it takes a while to get a book out. And so it's one of my biggest regrets that I didn't slow down. Or it wasn't slowing down. That wasn't the point back then, or the problem is that I didn't complete writing the book and publishing it. Now, what a lot of people are doing is they're waiting for the right time. And let me tell you, if right now is not the right time for almost anything that you think is going to take a while, or you really want to give it your attention, if right now is not the right time and you want to wait until your business is more successful, more success is almost never going to clear your plate. You can get to the point where you've got so much success and a lot of leverage where your time does get freed up. But that is so far down the path for most of us. So if your story right now is you don't have the time and the space to write a book or to do something, you probably will never get it, unless you just have suffered enough. And like my story was, I finally wrote this book in 2014 for fathers and daughters, and I would tease it and tell people about it. And literally people just started getting angry at me. Like, you better get that book out, right? And so finally I went back out, and, years after this content was created, that book is finally coming out in the next few months. But it's not because I found a way to free up time. It's because I had so much misery and suffering for not writing the book that I made the time. So my advice to all of you is, if you have something on your heart, especially writing a book is something you want to do, write the book. Doesn't mean you have to finish it before you do anything, but write it. Just the process of writing the book itself is really, really important. And a lot of the things that I'm going to ask you to do in this program have as their main objective is process only. I don't even care if you're able to make money on some of the things that we talk about. The process of doing it is valuable, regardless of whether you sell it or it creates some kind of success that you might be wanting. And with you specifically, yes. But there's a bigger issue around that book for you, which is, when's it going to be done? And so if you use the same vague, like, I don't think the book is done yet, I don't think the book is done yet, then that's going to be really tough for you to ever have a time when the book is done. And the reality is you will never be done, but you got to complete the book. You got to have an end time on the book. And then if there's more that needs to be birthed, then write another book. And especially at the rate that you are evolving and creating, that book will never catch up to the evolution. Kathy asks, if you're not much into writing, do you recommend still writing a book? I recommend having a book written. This brings up a really good point, and it's a creative conversation. A lot of people are not, like, we all create differently. A lot of people are great at sitting down and actually writing. I personally, I'm good at it, but I'm not very productive if I sit down and actually write a book. I'm much better on the fly, meaning just give me a word and I'll come up with an hour's worth of content, and then somebody listen to it and then put it into a book. That's how both of these books got written. I say both because there's another book. I might actually push it out faster than the daddy-daughter book because I'm not going to initially have it edited for strategic reasons. I can share more of that later. But these two books, Daddy, Are You Proud of Me? And You Can't Complete Me, which is a relationship book that I wrote with my wife. Those were both done through a live presentation. And then I gave them to somebody to write, put it in a book form. So how you create doesn't necessarily need to be what gets created. So if you're better in doing audios, then just do audios. I mean, I have like 500 audios, at least, way more than that, actually, now that I think about it. And so in those audios, there's 50 books. And at some point, I will continue to have books written, but I'm not going to sit down and write them. I'll edit them, which is different. That's the process I'm in right now with my book. I'm editing and I love it. But somebody took my spoken voice and like actual audio and put it into a book format. You can also hire people to pull the book out of you, where they'll just ask questions and you're co-creating it with them. So there are several ways to do it, but the creativity process is one that's so important, regardless of whether it turns into a book or it turns into a course or what it turns into. The creativity process itself is really important. And I think books are important. Do you listen to podcasts similar to IG? I don't know what IG is referring to if it's not Instagram. So I don't understand the question of following or listening to podcasts similar to Instagram to build relationships. If you want to clarify that, you can. But the short answer is yes, I do follow podcasts. I listen to a handful of podcasts. It's not in a consistent, like, daily plan of mine that I do every day. I am very picky with the podcasts that I listen to, and I do it for a couple reasons. to consume the content that I'm interested in, but also understand the podcast process. So I think from a modeling standpoint, it can be really good to experience the thing that you want to do. So if you want to do a podcast, it's better to learn podcast by consuming podcasts, right? And get ideas and so forth. I don't follow podcasts to build relationships. So the short answer to that one is no. I guess you could, follow podcasts and get familiar with certain people's content, and then you can reach out to them and say, hey, I saw your podcast, or I listened to your podcast on this, and I really like it. So it can be used in networking like that. It's a slower process because podcasts are long, and if you want it to be valuable, you're gonna have to listen to a lot of stuff, but you certainly can. And that could be like a quality over quantity decision that you make. More ways to get into conversations with more people. I love you. There's so little clarity in that conversation that I don't even want to address it. And then, the last one on that page. I think this is more of a strategy question. Ways to grow my list, increase reach of influence. I'm going to table that one because we'll talk about more specific list growing ideas. But the fundamentals of growing a list is a trade. You trade something of value for something of value. So online, it's usually you give me your email address, I'll give you something. It could be a webinar, it could be a download, it could be a video, it could be something tangible, whatever it is. You give me your email and I'll give you something. And that's the basic list building tactic. And then how you do that on Instagram could be different than how you do it on a paid advertisement on Google or Facebook. And it could be different than how you do it on social media in general. So the details can differ, but that's the essence of all list growth. And let's see, I have a few more minutes. Let's see, I'm going to look at all of these together, and I probably won't answer all of them. I feel like I could be playing bigger. I already kind of addressed that one. That's a judgment. It's not fair unless you assess what that actually means. So if you want to put specifics to that, like I feel like I could have 1,000 followers on Instagram, and right now I only have 600. Great, we can solve the gap between 600 and 1,000, but we can't solve the gap between I suck and I want to be better, because it's just a vague, perpetual story that pretty much all of us have on some level. And one of the reasons that the story never ends is because we never give ourselves an ending point. We never give ourselves a condition that can be fulfilled. So if you want to come up with conditions there, then we can address it. Otherwise, it's a tail chasing question. Have a valuable message, solid seeker, more places where she is. Do I recommend Facebook stalking? Yeah. So one of the things that I said that I invited you to do to get in motion, all of you, after the live event when I sent out the recordings, is to basically become your seeker as much as you can. Get into the Facebook groups that they're in, watch the videos that they watch, read the magazines if you want to do that they might read if your seeker reads magazines. Just become them. It's like character acting. You got to get into that character to really truly understand that person. Now, a lot of people don't want to do it because it seems like it's a waste of time, or it seems like it's going to take a long time, but it's the most valuable thing you have. From a strategic standpoint, the most valuable thing you have is the perspective of your seeker. If you know what they're typing into Google, if you know what scares them, if you know what and who they don't trust, if you know what they're desperately seeking, if you know what they'll write a blank check for, then you have literally a business that you can write your own ticket, because you have the most valuable asset, which is what they want and what they're afraid of. You have their psychographics. So any work that is geared toward learning psychographics is going to be harder than work geared toward learning demographics, which is basically just profile. Women, men, 35 years old, those are all easy to observe and measure. So they're easy to go after. The other stuff is harder, but more valuable. So I would absolutely encourage Facebook stalking, or just becoming your seeker as much as you possibly can. And then properly tagging YouTube videos. I'll speak to that for a moment, but the bigger conversation is keywords. Keywords are what's important in Instagram. Hashtags, those are basically keywords. Keywords on YouTube, keywords on your website. SEO is based on keywords. So there are several different applications of keywords. YouTube tags are keywords. Keywords are what are people searching for. So if you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see that pretty much all of my recent videos that I do have the title Life Coach Training. That's because we've identified that life coach training is one of the most valuable keywords out there, which means there are a lot of people searching for it and there's not a whole lot of competition. That's how you find keywords that are most valuable, and that's how you determine what you want to tag any of your things with, including your YouTube videos. So if you want to talk about love, let's say, and you just go after the keyword love, yeah, there's probably 50 million people typing in some version of that right now, but there's also 300 million competing for the keyword. But if you identify that what you really want to teach is trust inside of a relationship, you might see that there's nobody teaching that. But then you also might find there's nobody searching for it either. So that's also not a valuable keyword. Some of this takes research. There are free programs that I'll share with you guys, and specifically when we get into YouTube, where you can search or you can type things in and see what the value of the keywords are. If any of you want to get started on this right away, you can just type in keyword research tool. Google has one. A bunch of different places. Well, I don't know about a bunch, but several different places or platforms have free keyword research tools or platforms that you can use. Sneha just put in Uber Suggest. I haven't heard of that. I'm sure there's a lot of different tools now, more than when I was doing the heavier keyword research in years past. So that's what you want to do, is identify keywords that have a decent volume of people searching for them, but not a whole lot of competition. If you have a lot of competition, then you put up a video that has 10 views and you're up against Oprah Winfrey, who did a video on love and it has 80 million views. Your video is probably not going to come up. So that's why you don't want to, especially in the early phases, deal with a lot of competition. And that's a process of going back and forth. What keyword tags actually work, because you're predicting what's going to work, and then you might do the video and it actually doesn't work. So that's the resiliency piece, right? So properly, in quotes, is understanding what I just said and then testing and seeing what comes up, using the data to realize. And so on my YouTube channel, we look in the analytics and we look at the different videos that have the most amount of views, the most amount of engagement, the shares, the most amount of subscribers. You know, I might have a video that has gotten 500 views, but only 2 people subscribed. I might have another video that has 200 views and 8 people subscribed. So what's the more valuable data there? The number of views or the number of subscribers? Probably the number of subscribers. And all of that is a process of testing and tweaking based on strategic and embodied resilience. And if you don't know what the proper keyword tags are, I would just use some, honestly, like just do it. Because even if you don't know what the right ones are, at least you're doing the process. And you'll get more used to the process so that when you do the keyword research or hire somebody to do it or whatever, you'll have a familiarity with the process, and that will help on its own. And on YouTube, it's the same thing as you would do on Instagram. So the kinds of keywords that you would put up on Instagram, or the kinds of keywords that you might search for on Instagram, just get in the habit of putting them up on YouTube, and then we'll help solidify that strategy going forward. All right. So I have to end this call. Let's see. Ariel says, where is that line between create to create for me versus create to make sure I'm adding value for someone else? Generally, it's the same thing. Where it differs is what wrapping paper you use. So if you're creating for yourself, that will be valuable to somebody. And if you're creating to create for your heart's message and the song that's yours to sing, whoever is attracted to that is your seeker. So creating for yourself is usually more enjoyable, and it's more meaningful, and it actually attracts your seeker better. But the strategic consideration is, how are you going to language it? So you might create for self-love, let's say, but the wrapping paper that you put on the package, meaning what is going to make it attractive to them to actually open it, could be totally different than what's actually in the package. And again, that's where the strategic resiliency comes in. Like, wow, I thought for sure a bunch of people were going to open this email. Or, you know, one of the reasons why this email that I was telling you about really surprised me is because it's like the 4th email in the sequence that I'm aware of, and nobody's responded to the first 3. So although I didn't really specifically ask for a response, but, you know, I got emails going out to 20,000 Mary Kay ladies. I got to figure at least somebody's going to respond and go, hey, a nice email, anything, right? But I wasn't getting any response whatsoever. So I didn't even realize that they were going out. And then this like crazy response came in today. So obviously I struck a chord, but I couldn't have predicted that. And now I know that kind of email actually works. And so I'll be using that kind of email in the other markets. And we'll see if we can continue all of it. So if you do have any other questions that you want to put in the Facebook group, please do. Our module number 2 is set to go live next week. So same thing. We'll be jumping on this same Zoom call, Zoom link. And next call will be a content call, meaning I'm going to have more like information that I'm actually teaching from slides and handout and things like that, versus just thoughts that I had and your questions for this one. So I hope this has been valuable. Put a 1 in the comment box if it has, and share it with all of your friends so that Facebook will increase the value of my video, because this is all about me. Anyway, I appreciate you all. Thank you, Katie, for sharing it with 1.7 trillion people. That's super, super helpful. All right, you all, take care. I love and appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.